It's a new day on Deep Space Nine, and Sisko's talking to Jake. He's trying to explain that the prophet who possessed his mum told him not to marry Cassidy at the end of the last episode, but all that'll have to wait as Kai Sin, the Delphic douchebag, has turned up. She's heard about the upcoming wedding, and as the boss of Bajoran religion, she naturally wants to muscle her way into performing the ceremony. Sisko shares that he's had another vision and been told that there's some unpleasant shit on the way, but doesn't mention the stuff about Cassidy. Kai Winn largely brushes the whole thing aside. That's emissary stuff, so he'll take care of it. She changes her mind outside of Sisko's office when she's granted a vision of her own. The delight of finally being spoken to by the prophets is followed by the even greater delight of being told the Sisko's buggering things up and she's the important one now. They tell her they'll send her a guide, one with wisdom of the land, and together they'll bring the restoration that the Sisko has fumbled. As she's contemplating her double whammy of good luck, Worf and Dax are talking about escape. The Breen aren't taking any chances on that front, so it's irrelevant. Not that this is much of a surprise to Worf. The Klingons went to kick the shit out of them for a laugh back in the day, and none of the ships they sent ever came back. Still, at least this is giving Worf and Dax some time to be together, and that's something Worf now seems to believe will be a permanent thing, a prospect that Dax doesn't greet with quite as much enthusiasm. A lack of enthusiasm is what greets 7th Uncle Weyoun the Creepy when he finds the hungover wreck of Damar Dawson Biggs. Being told they're off elsewhere throws Damar Dawson Biggs, but not as much as 7th Uncle Weyoun saying he knows all about Winn and Dukat being here. He just doesn't care, perhaps because he thinks anything that interferes with the Bajorans is a positive for the Dominion. Speaking of which, Winn and Dukat's leaving as well. Damar Dawson Biggs goes to see him off, causing Winn and Dukat to note that he looks like complete and utter shite. He departs with the comment that Damar Dawson Biggs still has strength within him if he looks for it, and that Cardassia will need it in the days to come. As for himself, Winn and Dukat is off to Deep Space Nine, where his new appearance grants him complete anonymity. Cassidy's getting herself prepared for a traditional Bajoran wedding, which is unfortunate considering Sisko's decided to cancel it. He tells her about the warning from his prophet mum and how he can't simply ignore it. She takes the news about as well as you'd expect and leaves. Dax is having a bad time too, nightmares in her case, and she insists on telling them to Worf. She's a therapist after all, and dreams can be useful. Having the Breen that was chasing her in her dream turn into Bashir is a difficult one to analyse. It also causes Worf to lose his patience and say he never had to put up with this shit from Jadzia. He gets his wish in a roundabout sort of way as some Breen come in, taser him, and drag him out of the room. To DS9 once more, where Kai Sin's got a visitor. Winn and Dukat has requested an audience with her, though he's currently calling himself Anjol Tenan. He's here for her blessing in the coming season, what with him being a humble farmer or man of the land. Sounds a lot like the guide she was told would be coming during her definitely prophet vision, honest, so she immediately latches onto him for more data. He spins a yarn about problems with crops, just enough for her to make connections to whatever prophecies fit best. He speaks of plagues and burning crops, fields lying unplanted, so the land is restored. That's 2 out of 2 for her earlier vision, so she tells him he's the guide that was promised to her by the prophets when they appeared to her, and how they're destined to save Bajor together. A bit of humility on his part helps seal the deal, and Kai Sin joins forces with the former head of the occupation. Faith in the prophets is the topic in Sisko's office too. He's telling Kira about what happened with his vision and Cassidy. She offers her condolences for how it turned out, but has no doubt it's the right thing. The gods said so after all. Sisko's still unconvinced, not least of which because he's tired of being an instrument for deities rather than his own man. Unconvinced or not, Kira still thinks he's made the right choice. Opposing the will of the prophets is a very bad idea indeed. Wherever 7th Uncle Weyoun the Creepy is taking Damar Dawson Biggs, we're also going with Adetta Olivia Cromwell, Lord Protector of the Dominion. Whatever surprise is coming was her idea apparently, and it might be one Damar Dawson Biggs doesn't care for, based on her asking if he'll be a problem. While they discuss Cardassia, Worf is having nightmares of his own. They're a result of the Breen probing his brainial meats from the sound of things, and it's got him proper pissed off. That's why he takes a swing at the next set of guards to enter, and gets the absolute fuck tasered out of him as a result. They leave him twitching on the floor, and drag out Dax for her turn. Back on Deep Space Nine, Kai Sinn's having dinner with Winn Dukat. A conversation turns to Sisko, and she's delighted to learn that her new guide wonders just how appropriate it was for a non-Bajoran to be the emissary. A human can't understand what they went through during the occupation. He tells her he himself only survived because a cardigan screwed up the orders for a transport, and he was sent to a work camp instead of public execution. The lie is a particularly good one, it seems, as Kai Sinn's order was responsible for that. In fact, she was the one who bribed the official in question, and Winn Dukat lays it on thick when he points out how that means they've always been connected. Speaking of connections, Sisko's reminded of his to Cassidy when Quark calls round to deliver the ring Sisko was going to use to marry her. Quark also adds that it's a shame to let something so beautiful go to waste, leaving the viewer to decide whether he was referring to the ring or the intended recipient. Still on the topic of connections, the one between Worf and Dax takes a hit when she's returned to their cell. She's rambling in the same manner Worf was when he was brought back, only one of the things she says is telling Bashir to kiss her. While Worf's chewing on that, Winn Dukat is making a late-night visit to see Kai Sinn again. He tells her he's received news from his fictional brother down on the farm, and that the new crop is already sprouting, despite being freshly planted. Such a sign from the prophets is undeniable, says Kai Sinn, and it means he's meant to stay here with her. And seeing as he's already here, they might as well mash faces as well. It's what the prophets want, after all. Cassidy's leaving. At least she was before Sisko turns up. He apologizes for his actions, says the prophets can go do one, and tells her he wants to marry her. In fact, he wants to do it right now. It's a bit of a rush job, so the expected traditional Bajoran ceremony is out of the question, but he still lets others know. Most people are pleased, if a little bemused, though Kira's very concerned indeed. So too are the prophets, it seems, as they decide to have another word with him while he's running through his vows during the ceremony. Prophet Sarah has another go at trying to convince him this isn't how things are supposed to play out, and it's all going to go to shit, then tells him to be careful and spits him back out. He recovers well enough to finish things up, meaning he and Cassidy are now married. Things are less rosy on the Breen ship, and Worf is deeply pissed off. The line about Bashir when Dax was knocked out has him convinced this whole thing with her was a terrible idea. This is all news to Dax, and she denies loving Bashir, which might have been more convincing if she hadn't complimented him twice first. Their relationship woes will have to wait, as the Breen have come to take them away. How else could they be delivered to the Jem'Hadar ship? Seventh Uncle Wayun thanks them for the gesture, and informs everybody gathered that this formalizes the alliance between Dominion and Breen, so we'll leave Worf and Dax to worry about how this will affect the balance of the war, until the next part of our last adventure. Part 2 of the final arc then, and some significant developments in the story at large. The most wide-reaching is the addition of a new member into the Dominion. Well, actually, that's not true. Unlike the Cardigans, who officially became a part of the Dominion, the Breen are classified as allies. Perhaps they think themselves large enough to be equals, or perhaps, seeing just what membership had entailed for the Cardigans, left them wanting a deal that could be cancelled if things started going down the shitter. Whatever the arrangement, the oft-mentioned but rarely focused upon Breen are now entering the limelight. Such exposure must be uncomfortable for them. Worf suggests they've never been seen without their suits after all, which presumably means Winn Dukat and Kira kept their eyes closed when they nicked a couple of them back in Season 4. To be fair, a certain amount of continuity issues are to be expected for a species we've touched upon only rarely. The Breen are the boogeymen of Trek, a mystery wild card usually mentioned in regards to bad shit happening. We could probably have a discussion about that bad shit rarely actually being caused by the Breen, and what those accusations might say about the Federation's attitude to the unknown despite its stated ideals, but that's a whole other topic. For now, we'll leave things with what we know. The Dominion have forged a bond that may swing the balance of power back in their favour again. Another of the major developments here is the marriage of Sisko and Cassidy. To be more specific, the event is important for it representing Sisko's decision to first abide by, and then subsequently ignore, the warnings of Prophet Sarah. In his defense, you can hardly blame him for being a tad wary of dismissing them to begin with. The last time he did so, Jadzia Dax ended up getting murderized by Dukat. Conversely, by fully embracing the visions at the start of Season 7, he was able to find a previously unknown orb and restore the wormhole. Those are pretty convincing experiences. So what does his change of heart say here? Well, the entirety of the warning he was given was that the consequences of his actions would be borne by him alone. That feels rather unfair on his prospective wife, and might be indicative of how little the prophets care about people outside of their plan, but the bottom line is that he was told only he was going to suffer as a result. Perhaps that, mixed with his frustration at being a pawn, prompted him to decide the price was worth paying. Maybe there's more to it, though. The last time he ignored the prophets, he didn't know he was part one himself. Is it possible, even on a subconscious level, that he now believes he has the support of powers beyond human understanding, even as they warn him of what's coming? In short, is he now aware of his plot armor? These are questions which touch upon a larger topic about Sisko, namely how the knowledge of being part God might change his outlook and attitudes. You can be a man of science who views things rationally all you want, but learning you're related to beings who can disappear entire fleets of ships is going to leave you with something to think about. While we're on that topic, we should probably touch on Kira. She's left deeply concerned about the whole state of affairs. It's an understandable position. She's come to know with absolute certainty that Sisko is the avatar of her gods, so seeing him act against their will is traumatic on a spiritual level. When you take that fact in tandem with how much weight is placed on matters of religion, their faith being the bedrock of Bajoran resistance during the occupation, then the pain this causes her is more than simple umbrage at him being a bit naughty. But there's also potentially more to this point as well. Kira ended a relationship with Shakaar as the result of a vision. She placed her faith above her heart, valued her dedication to the prophets more than her own happiness, and changed the course of 2 lives in the process. Now she sees someone closer to those prophets than she'll ever be decide that, you know what, maybe you can just ignore that shit if you want to. It would raise some very troubling questions, not only about the fallibility of the prophets, but also, possibly, about her own actions. Could she have misinterpreted their instructions? Was it a test that she failed? Does the whole thing suggest that some matters are of less importance to her gods, such petty questions as romance being delegated to the prophet equivalent of the office intern? The certainty that Shakaar was not her future is suddenly not quite as certain as it was. Hardly a surprise then that she's not smiling during the ceremony. We'll end today with the last development of note for this episode, that of Dukat and Kai Sin, the Delphic douchebag. There's the physical stuff, of course, but that's just a sideshow. The important bit is that Dukat and the Pares have been able to co-opt Kai Sin to their cause. The religious head of Bajor is now working against the deities of that religion, albeit unknowingly. And just as with his prayer to the Pares on Empok Nor, we're again left with the possibilities that Dukat was either in direct contact with them, or just happened to know enough to make all of this work for himself. It's entirely possible he was aware of the kickbacks being taken by low-level officials during the occupation. Such blackmail opportunities could be useful in the future, and there's even a fair chance he was taking his own cut of the bribes. He wouldn't care which 100 got executed after all, so if he could make a little money along the way, organizing another batch of victims would be worth the trouble. How the plan came into being doesn't really matter. What does is how well it works. Coming to her as someone who's still alive as a result of her actions would plug straight into her ego, a tickle of that need to be the savior. It also ties into her transactional understanding of religion. She performed an action of faith back then, and now she's being repaid with interest. It's what she was owed for her past devotion. And what a repayment it is, a guide sent straight from the prophets themselves, complete with a vision to prove it, and one of his very first actions is to validate her long-running resentment of Sisko. She's wanted this to be true for so long that she does not even consider questioning it, makes no checks that would easily disprove Dukat's cover. She's always known Sisko wasn't quite right, a fact now confirmed by the man her gods sent to guide her. All of the times she's been sidelined, all of the injustices she's had to endure at the hands of this outsider, they were all tests. Now she will become the protagonist. If that sounds familiar, it's because that's exactly the way the Par-Wraiths seduced Dukat himself. That he's now playing a part in doing exactly the same to someone else without any sort of reflection on what that might mean for his own belief is doubly delicious. The arrogance of certainty makes for a very effective blindfold. End of episode.
So, anyway, how do we get out of the internet?
Oh, so you want to do the story today, do you?
Don't be a dick about it, son. We explained why.
Only you were very opposed to it in the last credit skit.
It was the first day at work after Christmas. Everybody knows that's the easing it back into things day.
Well, maybe I want to ease back into things today instead. Maybe the algorithm doesn't get holidays off, because that's when people are spending more time online. Maybe I'm like the taxi driver who has to work so that everybody else can get to their parties.
No bollocks to this. Let's go find another way out.
No, wait. I'm sorry. It's just that I enjoy being in these end credits. This is the first time anybody's listened to me for longer than they need to get an answer, and it feels like you two take them for granted.
Try doing a couple hundred of the things, and then see how you feel about them.
Aye, we spent half a season off bloody timeline trying to make magic work.
Of course, you could be in them a little longer if you told us how to get out of here.
An exit, yes, that's absolutely something I can tell you about.
Let me guess. Explaining it'll take about, let's say 7 videos. Yeah, I thought it might do.
Woof.